Welcome to the Liberty UA channel. Joining us today is Elisevich, an entrepreneur and political activist. Welcome, Dennis.
Hello.
Please subscribe to our channel, like our videos, share them, and leave your comments. And if you don't have time to watch our long videos, check out the short ones on the Liberty TV channel. Please subscribe to Dennis Elisevich's channel as well. Dennis, can you comment on what happened at the Odesa Military Recruitment Center? The entire internet is filled with this information that today a special operation took place, organized by the Security Service of Ukraine and court. They carried out a large-scale special operation, and as a result, 8 employees of the Military Recruitment Center and 1 police major were detained. So it was a carefully planned operation. What was the goal? They aimed to show how Military Recruitment Center staff work with the district police officer. Through the district police officer, they were looking for people. The special group was searching for people who had wealth. Wealth meaning they needed to have $30,000 or $50,000. This district officer finds such people. He gave information to the employees of the military recruitment center, and then they would catch this person, and the person had to pay them the amount they demanded.
If not, they would send them into the army on assault missions and say, you will go straight onto an assault mission.
This situation might be news or maybe not news for many people. But today, a lot of attention is being paid to it. And could it be somehow connected to the fact that there was terror, a terrorist act in Kyiv? So that people would forget about that situation, switch to something new, and show the work of law enforcement in a positive light. That's why this situation exists. What do you think?
Well, first of all, I want to reassure everyone right away and unfortunately put all the best hopes aside for now. What do I want to tell you? I don't have any evidence. I can't prove what I'm about to say. I'm just going to share my personal opinion, my own guesses. Look at how it turns out. The Odesa draft office is the most criminal in all of Ukraine. Everyone knows that. They were the first to start acting harshly. They have the highest rates. Everything there is as fascist as possible. Let's call things by their proper names. A boy was killed there. I think it was a 16-year-old in Odesa, I believe. So a bunch of men were wounded there, people were killed, it was a nightmare, and then suddenly they carried out such a tough special operation. I saw the video, the SBU really gave those draft office guys a beating. This has been going on for years. Why did they wake up now? I think they just demanded money from the wrong person. I think they demanded money from someone who might be connected to the SBU, maybe someone's relative. Basically, they messed with the wrong person and paid the price for it. Because, excuse me, if they had killed a boy or injured a woman or killed a man and the SBU had responded, I would say that's good. No, look, I also get satisfaction when I see the draft office guys getting roughed up. That brings me satisfaction too. But globally, this doesn't solve any problem. We saw this special operation, that's it, and tomorrow the same thing will continue. The same lawlessness is happening in all the cities of Ukraine, so of course you can watch it, but our people are just like that. Maybe you know this is almost a kind of tactic. They did it to diffuse some of the negativity. Like, see, justice does exist after all. We punish them a little to lower the tension in society so that now a naive person sits and thinks, well, that's it. They've started going after the draft office guys. And if this is followed by the so-called reform of the draft offices, then it's definitely all planned that way. I'm not trying to say that they detained good people and they didn't deserve it. No, they got what they deserved. But that's exactly how you need to act against 95% of the draft offices all over Ukraine.
Do you have that feeling that you need to find someone to blame? And so the authorities can't say, we created the draft offices, they took money from people, they terrorized us, we're to blame for this, we did this, how could we have done this? They won't tell us that. Someone has to be at fault, someone has to take the blame. And who can that be? Either the draft dodgers, but here you can't really blame people who don't want to go to the front. So the draft offices are to blame. They need to be discredited somehow, made to look guilty, and the authorities will run in the elections.
How can this be presented nicely?
How can this be presented to people?
No one is running for the elections yet. The elections haven't been announced. I understand what you're talking about. In the end, that's how it will be done. In the end, that's how it will be done. They'll be made the scapegoats. Maybe they'll show a couple of cops there that they were all in on it. But let's not forget who led to this situation, who gave the green light for this. You see, Tatiana, if this had started in April or March and now all this happened, then we could talk about something. But this has been going on since 2023. And today it's already 2026. This has been going on for 3 years so harshly. 3 years. And that's why, well, answering your question, I can say right away what makes me happy. So when someone writes about the same thing you just described, when someone makes a post about it, wherever it is, on any social network, basically 95% of the comments from people show that they all understand. They understand where most things are staged. They understand where they're being deceived. They understand where it's dishonest, where it's unfair. And you don't have to be legally savvy or understand politics for that. A person intuitively feels, I'm being deceived here. This is dishonest. This is wrong.
We understand that deception is coming at us from all sides, and we already feel, understand, and know for sure that it's deception, but there's nothing we can do about it.
There was hope that after Easter, Kushner and Witkoff would come to visit us.
Whether they will come is still unclear, but Zelensky gave an interview yesterday and said, I believe that their visits to Ukraine and seeing what is happening here with their own eyes is something they need more than we do. Well, they don't have the same situation as we do. They don't need to end the war the way we do. At least that's how it seems to us, the people.
But they need to know what's happening here. In order to have an objective picture, they need to be not in their offices, but closer to the people.
After these words, it seems that we should expect these guests to visit Ukraine in the near future.
You just mentioned Zelensky's phrase that this is needed more by the US than by us. Is that what you meant?
Thank you. I mean that it was for Witkoff and Kushner. Yes, they need it.
Yesterday's statement. Look, Kushner has a serious health problem. A very serious diagnosis. A person who doesn't care about Ukraine at all, who has a great life, wealth, and everything else, is going to Kyiv. In order for us, among other reasons, not just out of kindness, but also so that people stop dying here and the country has a chance for a future, he wants to come to Kyiv. Тут рисуется какой-то Zelensky. He drowned the country in blood, throwing it into total disorder, suffering, and chaos. He says they need it more. Who are they? Billionaire Witkoff or billionaire Kushner taking from Trump? They need it. Kushner has an investment fund worth $2 billion. What are we talking about? There's a lot of interest from the Middle East. That's a whole different level. But then Zelensky began to feel powerful. You see, where does that come from? What are its roots? When you didn't perform for Kushner, but did for Putin, Medvedev, Yanukovych, and probably Poroshenko, though I'm not sure. And now, basically, Zelensky is probably already richer than Yanukovych and Poroshenko, and most importantly, richer than Kolomoisky. The one who gave him a start in life, he's now richer than Kolomoisky. He feels like now it's my time. And somewhere along the way, he lost his inhibitions. He thinks it's okay to behave like that towards Witkoff and Kushner. But if we speak in general, I think it's a deliberate campaign to provoke President Trump to walk out of the negotiations so later they can say, it wasn't me who walked out, it was Trump. You see? And here I have to say something else. When he made that statement, I read the comments. Well, about 60 to 70% think the same way I do. 30 to 40% still say, what good are they? Look at what they and Veronina were doing. Why do we even need these Kushners and Witkoffs? These are written by young guys who for some reason aren't at the front. You see? They don't want peace. They want another guy like them to die while they sit in Troitsa and act smart. In short, that's the sadness, the trouble. People really need to learn to tell black from white. I can say this. The situation in Iran is very complicated. The negotiations are on the verge of collapsing at this very moment as we're talking. Neither J.D. Vance, nor Witkoff, nor Kushner have flown out to Islamabad yet. Everything has changed there. Everything has been reshuffled. There are all kinds of rumors going around. In short, at the last moment and against this background, our situation is getting worse. And as for Zelensky, we discussed this last time, I'm telling you, there's a certain ultimatum hanging over Zelensky. That is, if he doesn't at least announce elections now, let's say for the fall, the latest possible date, the fall, then things will be very bad. He has an ultimatum, he has everything, but for some reason he feels the need to act this way. He feels that he's allowed to do this because he's weakening Russia.
Russia is not getting weaker. That's what the Europeans are saying, that they will introduce the 20th package of sanctions. Some countries are for it, some are against it. Trump continues to allow Russia to trade without sanctions. So Russia will keep getting richer, selling oil.
You can't really say they're the ones being worn down, so if we look at our government, what are they guided by, considering this?
Here, people talk about lowering the mobilization age, calling up women, and if this is a war of attrition, then the feeling is that we need to involve more people and more weapons, so it's us who are getting exhausted, not them. But this line of fighting a war of attrition doesn't end. How do they explain it to us? And we believe in it. It's hard to understand.
Any adult should understand there are now 23 or 24 million people left in Ukraine. There were about 35 million before the war. And in Russia, there are 135 million people. Just from this point of view, especially considering that Russia acts like an empire, they live and think in those terms, it's clear that we'll run out of people faster. But then Zelensky appears on RBC Ukraine, gives an interview and explains. And all this stuff Putin is doing with the internet is because he's planning to announce a general mobilization. And do you know that Putin is planning to attack the Baltic countries? There's no sign of mobilization in Russia. They're still buying cannon fodder for money, just like before. The head of the Estonian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the minister, comes out and says, "You are undermining our relations with this because our intelligence doesn't see anything." And what do we see? Zelensky travels around the world looking for any spark of fire, and he brings kerosene in a canister and pours it on. He went to America to meet Trump, saying Russia would catch up despite the ocean. It failed. They told him to leave. He also poured some kerosene there. To the Middle East, let us handle this for you. It didn't work out. He carries kerosene everywhere. The Baltic countries, Berlin, Paris, he says they'll all be bombed. You see, this is simply a person who understands, who has clearly decided for himself. I must become an arms baron and under no circumstances give up power. And my only chance is to be useful to them in some way. Not just a burden asking for a loan for the war, but to be useful in some way. So that's how he's useful. It's a very funny situation, you know? We shouldn't make some characters, unfortunately, from the free world into saints. Like, what's his name? Rebke. Ryobka, he was a correspondent. Insider information after insider information published throughout the war years, and he's still writing now just yesterday. You know, friends, I'm finishing my journalism career because I'm going to work at a joint German-Ukrainian company for drone production or for armaments in general. This is the German version of Leshchenko. These are those guys. And our people just pricked up their ears and believed him. Oh God, Ryobka is going to tell us now. He definitely knows the truth. It's all a banal system, just talking heads. Like I said, we have Leshchenko, they have this Ryobka. It's all a simple scam, just making money. And the main thing is, this isn't about peace, it's about war. But we definitely need peace. Everyone understands that now. And in Europe, believe me, not everyone, but many have already realized this. Many in Europe have shaken Zelensky's hand and then quickly washed theirs. I stand by what I say, but not everyone, not everyone.
But after the speech in Europe from Belgium, it was actually the military from Belgium, if I'm not mistaken, that was the first time he spoke and said that Ukrainians are buying us time at the cost of their lives and their blood. Ukrainians heard this, and so did our president and the Verkhovna Rada. What do you think the parliament should have done in response?
Well, in your opinion, you are in the parliament, you heard this, what should be done?
You know, if I were the president, I'd be very offended by this. But our president, in the same interview with RBC Ukraine, said that, well, it was unpleasant. I admit it was unpleasant, that it was unpleasant to hear. It was unpleasant for Ukrainians to hear. But yes, today we are protecting Europe. I find this so offensive. And if I were a soldier on the front lines, you know, I can't even say how I would react, because those on the front lines are defending their country. They went to the front for their families and country. I don't know how things are now, but originally that's how it all was. I believe everyone has their own interest. And he makes such a statement, but I, Tatiana, have a completely different point of view. Categorically 1,000 times more pro-Ukrainian. Not against Europe, but not to be suckers either. You know, in the role of a fool, like in those not-so-good companies, they find a fool and send him on some tasks where he might get smacked, risky ones where he doesn't even realize the risk. They found someone like that. But I am absolutely against putting the Ukrainian people, our country, in that position. We trade, we interact with everyone, but not in the role of a fool. No more war. We avoid it at all costs. There's Putin, there's Russia, there's Lukashenko, there's Belarus. Let's sit down and talk so that everyone is satisfied without bending over or submitting to anyone. This is called taking everyone's interests into account. Take all the nuances into account. And from this, live by different standards. But when you, like I just said this, and you'll hear from every corner, why isn't it in the national language? And over there, they'll be burning books. And over there, they'll be doing this and that. So what is all this being done for? To fuel war, to keep people's hatred alive. So that narrow-minded people sit and think, okay, it's all because of the Russian language or because of Anna Karenina by Tolstoy. And they blame everything on that. I mean, it's some kind of absurdity. It's just absurd. But if you remove all this propaganda and a person lives without it for a week or a month, their confusion will clear up a bit. And they'll think, wait, maybe we should stop and actually think about Ukraine. So the answer is clear. Actually, I talked about this on my stream yesterday. Yes, yesterday Budanov spoke about Africans, that Africans will be coming to Ukraine. I have some inside information. I know it's already on the way. Everything is signed. It's already on the way. Soon Ukrainians will see Africans. I'm not a racist. I'm actually an anti-racist, I would say. But I'm not going to Africa, you see, for some reason. And they will bring people to us from third world countries, although Zelensky has already turned Ukraine into a third world country, but still not from Western civilization, I emphasize, at a time when our people are in coffins at the front and forced into emigration. How is that even possible? How is that possible? I'll answer. Someone needs it. This isn't about Ukraine at all. This is Zelensky. This is the shield of Europe. We are the shield of Europe, a buffer. And here Africans live. Are you out of your mind?
It's very offensive in this situation and so unpleasant, terribly unpleasant, even if you just consider the money issue here.
They say that for every worker who comes from another country, the employer has to pay $1,000, then that person can work.
For a Ukrainian who will go to the military enlistment office voluntarily, they will offer 500,000 hryvnias. This is what Poroshenko's party is proposing. If a Ukrainian is killed at the front, the family will receive 15 million. I'm telling you, these are the conclusions. So specifically for the worker to come, it's $1,000. If a person goes to the military enlistment office on their own, it's 500,000 hryvnias. And from the front, if they don't return or are killed, it's 15 million. Why is the price like that, and what is the benefit for the state? If we look only at the financial aspect, not taking into account that people are dying, even though that's the most important thing, how much money does the state need to spend to send Ukrainians somewhere and pay so little to bring these people to us? What's the benefit? Why do we have to pay so much for our people to be sent somewhere?
There's no benefit. This is the first time I'm hearing about it. But of course, I know about the 15 million. No one will pay that. Look, what's the benefit? What is the state? The state is Zelensky, Yermak. That's the state. But the country is our land and us, the people of Ukraine. That's why they are just temporary. Their goal is to take their share and leave once the chaos ends. That's different from someone who wants to live and own things in Ukraine. These are two fundamentally different viewpoints. These temporary office holders serve external interests, they serve personal interests. But in the press, of course, they'll tell you that they're worried about Ukraine, that they can't sleep at night because they're thinking about it. It's all one big absurdity. And until the population grows up, and at least on my part, I'm doing everything I can for this, the population needs to grow up. And I always speak. You asked me in the last interview, sometimes a bit harshly. And do you know why? Because I speak as if I'm talking to adults, to people who are capable of handling the truth. I don't want to talk to the audience like they're fools or treat them like children who might upset me and need me to stay calm. I don't want that because mostly adults watch me. Everyone is 18 or older, so speak with them directly and call things what they are. When I say that we need to take into account the interests of, among others, terrible Russia, it's not that I love Putin, he's my enemy, but it's in Ukraine's interests. But the authorities can't communicate with people like that. And in many other issues as well. About Africans, I want to tell you once again, this is a Pandora's box kind of danger. If you open this, well, to end it, you need a very firm hand. And I can say, most likely, people will end up in a situation where, since they tolerate and accept this, we will end up having to elect a president who will create his own version of ICE in Ukraine. And that's how it is. Bringing Ukrainians back by offering incredible opportunities, ones you can't find anywhere else, and an ICE that will send out of Ukraine those who don't want to leave voluntarily, so to speak.
Of course, I would really like all of this to happen, for peace to come to Ukraine in a peaceful way. And that's why we're considering the possibility of Witkoff and Kushner coming, that it will actually happen. And regarding the truth for adults, for grown people, the real truth. Right now, the situation in Sumy is dangerous.
What are they saying? The Kursk military group, the Ukrainian group, notes that the situation is currently stable and under control. No breakthroughs by Russian troops have been recorded. They say, where are they trying?
They attempted assaults, but we repelled them all. So this is misinformation being spread about this. On the other hand, they say it's 35 kilometers to Sumy. So we always hear things in this way, but when we get closer to the situation, we see that it's actually critical in the city. Why doesn't the government just tell us the truth in advance? Are they afraid we can't handle it, or is there another reason? The fact will still be the fact, and we will see the situation anyway. Why aren't we being informed, at least partially?
Because that would mean telling the still doubtful part of the population, a huge percentage of people, that it's actually better to end it so there won't be more trouble. But right now they need to sell the idea of victory. You must have noticed, especially in the last month since April, there's been this rhetoric that we're supplying drones to the whole world. He did the photo shoot in a video with weapons, missiles, and other armaments as the backdrop. These are trips to Europe and the Middle East. Zelensky spoke there a couple of times saying that we're winning at the front. This is a copy of how Russia operates, a copy of how Russia works. Basically, they need to boost their power now so that the followers stay put, while we're holding on pretty well. So look, Tatiana, even what you said won't happen. There won't be a turning point either way. Trouble will come eventually, if not now, then later. I'll tell you this, since the spring, since May 2022, I haven't been wrong in my forecast about Ukraine even once. I was wrong in the very first one, but I didn't make it public. It was just for myself. I thought the war would end quickly, like in Georgia. Well, I figured maybe 3 or 4 weeks. I never expected the war to last into a 5th year. By May, I finally understood. And since then, things have only gotten worse. I'm telling you, it's only going to get worse. A reversal is impossible.
How can people protect themselves? Now, after the terrorist attack that happened in Kiev, there's talk about legalizing firearms. I'm interested in your opinion on this. They say that the person who carried out the terrorist attack was on the street for an hour and he was already dangerous. So maybe if other people, civilians, had weapons and some people reacted faster, they might have responded and the situation wouldn't have escalated to this point on one hand. On the other hand, when there is such tension in society, is it possible to hand out weapons to people in such a community now?
Absolutely, it's possible. I absolutely believe in our people. All these stories about our people being some kind of savages are just not true. If the laws are written correctly for this, then everything will work perfectly. You see, when I have a reform program published or when I propose something, I'm not doing it for Zelensky or for this mess. Of course, it needs to be legalized and the right framework should be written for it. It's better to take American precedents right away and base everything on them. But this definitely needs to be done. Why? You just explained everything yourself. He walked around the street for an hour, and then the police supposedly saved someone, but they actually made things worse. The police made it worse. He might not have been killed, but he could have been shot or faced a harder life. The police can't protect anyone. Those aren't the right people there. You know, well, oh, I'm going to get off track now, but that girl, the police officer, she brazenly comes out and starts telling tall tales like there's a 60% shortage here, but I'm not even from there at all. So you basically admitted that the state is incapable of anything. In the capital of a country at war, practically in the city center, you have a police shortage. What kind of war is that then? So does that mean Putin just sends some sabotage groups here and stages a coup in Kiev? That's nonsense. But Tatiana, do you know what they're really doing? Protecting drug dealers, protecting scam call centers, and all sorts of other filth. That's what I... And where's the number? They're focused on money.
The police are near the military recruitment office, but the thing is, the police officers didn't act the way they should have.
Do you think that a human factor could be involved here, like they didn't act because of the human factor, or maybe they're young, inexperienced, or something like that?
So why did the police officers run away from the scene and leave the child who was screaming, who was saying, "Don't save me, save my father"?
Why do you think the police officers did that?
They're idiots. They're idiots. She says it herself. That idiot, I can't call her anything else. She says, I had to go back to the car and put away the tablet. Tatiana, you're a police officer surrounded by bloody people, a bleeding child and dead bodies. Yet you say, I left because the tablet bothered me, so I went to put it away. You see, it was keeping her from understanding the situation. Who is this even meant for? And then you mentioned the military recruitment office and business, plus the military recruitment office, and the police are working together with them. That's all. What I'm trying to say is I don't have any intention to attack anyone specifically. Overall, this state, the people, it's not functional. It's not for you, not for us. It's for them, for the cops, the bosses, the ones making money. Fewer cops' kids, somewhere there's some small stuff, someone got a deferment, things like that. Someone joined because they like to exercise violence against people. It makes them feel like somebody. Without it, they're nothing. That's it. No one else goes there. In 99.9% of cases, just so I don't offend anyone, there are some exceptions like everywhere. But overall, it's an anti-human, anti-Ukrainian system, and it needs to be changed at its core. The right to bear arms is a sacred right of a free person, of course, not a slave. And you tell people, here is your freedom, here are your weapons. No, take it away, I want to be a slave. Answer this. If people had been free to carry weapons, would Putin have attacked? Let's roll it back. If Ukraine had ever had a decent president who legalized this, would Putin have attacked? They would have shot everyone to hell. There would be no way for anyone to enter any cities or settlements. They might have captured some villages, but in larger towns with 50,000 residents, they wouldn't have been able to do a damn thing. They'd all have been shot. Second, would the draft office have been able to get away with this kind of lawless abuse? Tell me please, if they knew there were weapons? Never. Something like if we had shot a couple, it would have ended there. No one would have knowingly agreed. Here's your answer to the question, and these aren't even my words. Yesterday on the stream, I pulled some American stats. You see cases when some fool loses his mind or he's high on drugs, but this is the freest country in the world. It's a side effect of freedom. But you don't see how many crimes this has prevented. And there are plenty of cases when someone tries to rob 80-year-old pensioners, the old lady pulls out a gun and that's it. And how many robberies are prevented? But that's not even the most important thing. Prevention is key. Statistics show that in 90% of cases in America, no shots are fired. That is, either he sees that you have a weapon and backs off, or you fire into the air, or you point the gun at him and don't shoot. But it's only used in about 10% of cases. Gun owners in America are the most law-abiding people in America. The right to armed rebellion is written into the American Constitution. Would Zelensky have acted that way if he knew people were armed? Would Yanukovych? Would Poroshenko? Zelensky least of all, since he is absolutely the worst president Ukraine has ever had. Never. And this is it. People need this part of freedom. And I'm not saying that we should sell weapons to crazy people or just anyone like candy. No, of course, mental health checks, of course, background checks, but nothing more than that. After that, you buy them in stores. Europe has that too. In Israel, do you know how many terrorist attacks were stopped and lives saved because people had weapons? Just look at the videos on YouTube or check the statistics. It's obvious. And in America, from decade to decade, the percentage of violent crime decreases thanks to gun ownership. And in those states where it's more freely available, there are fewer violent crimes.
But after the police discredited themselves, just imagine the situation if our military acted like the police. They tell us, go to the front because you need to defend the country. We are defending, our military is defending, and the police as well, who are supposed to protect their wives and children. If our military fled the front, imagine the situation. Russians advancing and everyone running in different directions. Of course, some retreat and come up with tactics, but if they just ran away, that would be a different story. Right now, in this situation, they say there's no rotation for our military. Isn't this a situation where the police have discredited themselves, and it would be a good option for rotation to replace the military with these police officers, train them, let them go through combat training, and then return to their duties?
Well, Klimenko was in an interview, I think, with Radio Liberty, and he said they're not trained for this at all. Tell me, Tatiana, is a tractor driver more likely to learn how to handle weapons and deal with adrenaline-filled situations than a police officer who at least knows how to shoot? They taught him tactics and helped him understand he'd work under adrenaline and face violence. Of course, the police officer. But you see, it's a kind of caste. The Ministry of Internal Affairs, it's a caste, it's a structure. People just underestimate all of this. And, well, you understand, I don't want to compare it to the front after all. War is a bit different. As you correctly said, there is tactical retreat there. Secondly, your commander might be incompetent, so you use common sense and refuse to follow the order. We face that at the front too. But with a child here, you can't just say you have a bad police chief and ignore things. It's a totally different situation. Поэтому, that's why the Minister of Internal Affairs should resign. In any country, even less decent ones, he would have resigned long ago, since in the Western world, reputation matters and people try to save face. That's how they fired Zhukov in Ukraine. Yesterday on the stream, I told people to take a screenshot because he'd be reassigned. Today, I woke up and saw he's already been reassigned. That's it. And you say the police have discredited themselves, but for me, they've always been discredited. Should I remind you about that Vradivka case? That was ages ago. I think it was still under Yanukovych. There are countless nuances. For me, they've long been discredited. What Avakov did isn't reform. It's just window dressing. Reforming the Ministry of Internal Affairs is a separate issue. It's about building a true police force. It can be done like any reform in Ukraine. But who wants it? Who needs it?
Who needs it? There was a woman speaking, a former minister, I don't remember exactly who, but she said that women need to be mobilized.
So she says that women need to be mobilized immediately. Women should go to the front lines. Then we will be able to hold the front line. For some reason, no one talks about negotiations, but we can. We will be able to hold the front when we sit down at the negotiating table, and then we won't need to hold it anymore. But Zelensky asks, he says, what will we do then in 2.5 years when Trump leaves? He actually says that there are no security guarantees.
Earlier he said that they were 90% ready. Then he said that they were for 15 years. That's not enough. It should be for 20.
Now he says, if Trump is gone, what should we do? So what do you think we will do in 2 years? Let's figure it out.
Because this is important. He makes a statement, journalistke. Trump will only be around for another 2.5 years, but what then? Honestly, I expected everything from him. I expected everything, even about Witkoff and Kushner. But such nonsense, excuse me. Buddy, presidents are temporary everywhere except in Russia, Belarus, communist countries, and about 5 or 6 dictatorships. Actually, presidents have a limited term everywhere in the world. Well, actually, Tatiana, I'm just trying here, trying to find the right words. You said Congress is ready to approve it, and America also confirmed this. Even Rubio reportedly said Congress is ready. Yes, there's a premium. It's like the president of any democratic country. And Congress approves it? Second, wait, won't the next president just be temporary? Suppose Kamala wins, for example. Unlikely. But whoever supports him will benefit more. Kamala would also serve for 4 years. Or anyone else there, whoever wins will serve for 4 years, at most 8. Zelensky has led for 8 years with no end in sight. This shows a person who is absolutely unhinged. And it's not that I want to insult him, I'm just evaluating his actions from the outside. And you know what struck me about all this? The journalist who interviewed him, I came across her in my Facebook feed. She wrote a post about this interview. She's just amazed, saying it's simply an awesome interview. Other leading journalists told her this is just a model of journalism. But there wasn't a single question there. Why didn't you ask about what he just said? About Congress, about the fact that all presidents are elected for a limited term. We see a dictator who basically admitted everything, essentially dropped all masks in this interview, except for the fact that he's a dictator who has no intention of stepping down from power at all. He dropped the masks, essentially saying he doesn't need Trump or America, and that it'd be better if you left so he could blame you and do as he pleases. And you should know if America leaves, that's it. There will be a total lockdown. With his friends and some Europeans, he'll make things so intense that today will seem easy by comparison. His last safeguard is the United States.
You still hope that people from Kushner's team will come even after these statements? They will come and continue the peace negotiations, and somehow, in a difficult and unclear way, we will sign this peace agreement. Or will this not happen in the end?
As of today, I don't believe that Kushner and Witkoff will come in the next month. I just don't believe it, especially, as you correctly said after yesterday's statements. I just don't see it. You understand what I mean? I just don't see it. They will most likely fly to Russia.
Zelensky says it's unfair. They fly to Russia but don't come to Ukraine. And Trump seems to be more on Russia's side. But Trump was the one who provided weapons and intelligence to Ukraine. There is no information that he gave Starlink or weapons to Russia. That never happened.
Of course, that never happened under any US president. Moreover, regarding Starlink, Elon Musk actually helped a lot, both at the beginning of the war and now. Secondly, people don't know this, but America still indirectly allocates $2 billion a month. And besides that, under this program, Pirel sells weapons for NATO, which are then transferred to Ukraine. So America is definitely a partner of Ukraine. But you understand, the Trump administration wants to end the war. That's fundamentally important. But Zelensky doesn't want that. He doesn't want that. I hope, and I see it this way, that each day more Ukrainians realize who Zelensky is and that the war must end. And as for everyone else, I don't even know what to call it. How can all of this be justified?
People, what you can do is subscribe to our channel, share our video, maybe your friends will see it, maybe someone's opinion will change, because I know a lot of people who react aggressively to those who say we need to enter peace talks. These people really provoke aggression.
So Zelensky says that if NATO troops or weapons are not present on the territory of Ukraine during these 2.5 years, and Trump is no longer in office, then we are not confident at all. But if we had troops, if NATO weapons were stationed on the territory of Ukraine, and we were sure that the EU countries would help us, it would be a different story. So if he says regarding Estonia that they need to be ready because Russia will attack them, they are not ready, they won't be able to fight back. But here, when it comes to these security guarantees, he says that if these partners don't help us, then what are we supposed to do?
Why are there such contradictory facts?
In such very important matters, and when they are so contradictory, no one can intervene, not the parliament, not the constitutional court, no one.
Just during this interview, we caught him 3 times on the most fundamental, as you rightly said, most important things. He just gives completely different statements. He doesn't just adjust his statements slightly. He gives completely different ones and deliberately makes impossible claims that will never come true. Tatiana, which NATO troops in Ukraine are you referring to, since Putin said they'd instantly be legitimate targets?
Presence in a European country to be precise.
First about NATO troops, then he talked about European troops. None of this fits, not in any way. He came up with a new trick. He went to Europe, gave an interview and said, if the European Union had accepted, if they were in the European Union today, it would be Britain, Turkey, Ukraine and Norway. That's it. We would have been so strong that Putin would have been put in his place, but then Brexit happened in Britain. Yes, Turkey wants to join the EU, but hasn't been accepted. I'm not sure about Norway. I haven't heard if they're interested. So he has everything. Isn't it obvious that no one would want to take such a risk? And how can you just sit there and say, what if, and speculate like that? None of this is serious. And all these statements I emphasize to people, they're all, how should I put it, completely the opposite of the real situation. Well, that's what he said. The only thing we can hope for is that Putin packs his things and leaves. And then the war will end. That's about the level we're dealing with. It's complete nonsense. It won't happen. He's treating wishful thinking as reality, which isn't how someone acts if they truly want things to end. That's the main point. Good or bad, whether it's me or him, that's not how a leader who wants to end the war behaves. That's 1000%. I want to tell you, people still underestimate the danger of the situation Ukraine is in. Because when any country is led by someone who is not entirely rational, and we've seen this throughout history, and I can't call this adequate, it always ends very badly for the state.
Today there was a broadcast with Marina Stavnichuk, and we still didn't come to an agreement about who else can act and how. If the parliament doesn't act and the president doesn't act, then what? Should the whole nation perish because there is no other way out? Except for some unconstitutional path, there is no way out. Another issue is that all these years, now that Trump is in power, we depend on him.
And then it feels like, if Zelensky, what's next? What will happen to us?
It's as if we can't be the masters of our own country, like we always have to depend on someone. If it's not Trump, then it'll be some other country. This means that Zelensky simply understands that there will be someone controlling our country and we'll just be a subordinate state. He just doesn't want to tell us who. What do you think about that?
Yes, that's a good point. And not only Zelensky thought that way, but also Poroshenko and everyone else who's now seeking political power thinks exactly the same. You've noticed I'm the only one talking about any success for Ukraine, about the fact that we can actually do something at all. But everyone else says we need help here, we need this there, and then everything will work out. It doesn't work like that. And what he said, let people think about it. Why is it that the president says that Europe or America should support an army of 800,000 and that Europe should provide this? Where is Ukraine in all this? Where is the mention of it? Where is the talk about Ukraine's success? I'm not saying it will definitely be successful, but you have to at least make an attempt. Well, people need to see that we've done everything we could, but damn, it's very difficult. We're in a tough situation, but we're moving in the right direction. With mistakes, it might not happen quickly. That's the most important thing. There is a way forward, but right now, what way forward is there? You understand that this is basically not a sovereign state. If you depend on everything, then how is that defined? Tomorrow the tap shuts off and just like that, everything disappears. So what sovereignty remains? How is it real sovereignty if the IMF dictates your actions just to get a loan to repay the last one? What kind of sovereignty is left if you take 90 billion, which we've already discussed will return to them? They'll give us worthless goods and profit. I already mentioned the car loan example. So it's all complete nonsense. And you see, if Ukraine really was some kind of dump that couldn't be saved, we could still do a lot. For that, we need the right partners, of course, with the help of partners, I'm not saying otherwise, but in a way where we are useful to them and it's some kind of alliance, basically the way Israel acted. Well, why does Javier Milei fly from Argentina to Israel? They establish air connections, they exchange technologies, they make agreements, they shake hands, they hug, and the peoples grow closer as allies. Well, why can't we behave like that? Why can't we carry out reforms? No president has said we should preserve or cut government spending. They all want to expand it. That's why there's no real political opposition in Ukraine. They're all in it together. And Poroshenko just wants to align with Europe because there are budgets there. He will manage them. He knows how to deal with them. And he will do his own thing quietly. That's it. It's all a utopia, a utopia.
About Poroshenko, I want to emphasize that we talked about the incentive package, about the fact that if a man goes to the military enlistment office, he will be paid 500,000. This is an initiative. It's not a fact. It's just an initiative. Yuzanina talked about it. Yuzanina mentioned it. She said that the military enlistment office works terribly. The approach needs to be changed, and these kinds of options, and there they will pay 100,000 at first and 200,000 later. So people, this is an initiative. I want to emphasize that. How did we come to the point where taxes for sole proprietors are temporarily on pause for now? Tell me, how did we come to the point where they pushed to introduce them? Because at first they said it was a requirement, then they say it was a requirement from our government. Now they are temporarily suspended. Whose achievement is this, so to speak? Who managed to accomplish this?
50% me, to be honest, 50% me. Although Dorocic is already writing there that he and Timoshenko did it, that's not true, because people don't trust them. First of all, Timoshenko, and secondly, they don't have that kind of reach. Timoshenko can't do anything on social media. And I counted those streams, those videos where I talked about it, those reels, those TikToks. It all added up to almost 1 million views combined. And almost all of that was from Ukraine. So they saw not just that someone said something, but also how it was done. They understand that if they implement this, what will happen next? It won't be 1 million views anymore. It'll be 10 million, and they'll just give me a bigger audience that will support me. They got scared. No, others did something too. I can't say it's 100%. Well, I'd give half the credit to the others, but that's not the scariest part. First, as I said, this is a pause, not a cancellation. Second, my prediction is they likely won't do this, but will introduce something else instead. Just like Zhukov, the policeman.
This is a failure?
I quit, and tomorrow I'll have another important job. It's the same here. Yes, it's terrible. You can't burden small business with VAT, but we'll come up with something else for you. Yes, I believe it will be.
They say you need to look for alternatives, but where? Alternatives aren't money that grows on trees. You have to look for them somewhere. You have to get them from somewhere. That means someone has to earn them. There has to be some turnover, and then taxes can be paid from that. I don't know. So what are the alternatives?
I can't see how the state could take money from people without taxes, except maybe by force, like through the draft office or something.
I don't know. The population has no purchasing power at all. People are leaving. People are dying out. All the statistics show this. And you see, Tatiana, if you have a negative balance, if everything is bad, then you start by maybe reviewing your expenses first. I want to emphasize, every time people just, unfortunately, we need to educate people on this. People don't understand how inflated the expenses are in Ukraine. And why are they inflated? It's not because there are idiots sitting there who don't understand. It's because that's their livelihood. The more streams where they can get a cut at all levels, from the smallest fry to the biggest fish, the better it works for them. Everything else is a scam. It causes inflation, and it's a nightmare. And we have to donate to the army from this because we don't have our own supplies. This has been proven with numbers, verified, and anyone can check. That's why we need to insist on reducing government spending, on decreasing the state's influence on citizens' lives. And what about taxes? Taxes should be lowered to boost business activity. So why aren't they being reduced? Africans are not coming here to do business. Africans will come to serve large and medium-sized businesses, which will adapt in every way and find their way into the right offices. None of this leads to any success. It doesn't lead to any success at all. That was never the goal.
Can we foresee this? Stop it so that these people aren't sent to us, because, for example, in Europe, we understand what the consequences of this are.
And if people from these countries come to us, they often come from populations that may be criminal, or if not criminal, then at least highly conflict prone. How can we foresee this? How can we prevent it? Those in power say, and even some of our guests have said, that people who came to work in Germany were once greeted with flowers. We need to preserve our country. What should we do?
First, we need to stop the war, no matter what. So if you're asking what a person can do, if you hear someone speaking out against this and explaining why they're categorically opposed to it, share those videos. Repost, write comments, subscribe. All of this really works, and the case with sole proprietors proved it. If you hadn't watched, shared, and if sole proprietors hadn't protested, they would have introduced this tax. Don't think otherwise. I'll explain it again for the 100th time. All of this is thrown out there, then they measure the response, they sit and watch the numbers, seeing what kind of negative reaction there is. If it reaches a certain level, they realize they're signing their own death sentence, so they won't go for it. Because after all, politics and keeping their seat with their portfolio is important to them. They'll be brought in. I'm telling you this as a fact. They'll be brought in, and then it's necessary to choose the right president. The war will end, and it's important to choose the right president. You see, Tatiana, if they bring in 100,000, we can more or less handle this issue. But if they bring in 1 million, and they will bring in 1 million over the next few years, I think about 2 years, then in that case, only ICE can really help. But some president has to bring in ICE. And it's not like that. You understand, the task isn't just to gather them and take them away. But then who will work? We need to bring Ukrainians back home. And that's a very difficult task. Well, what's so difficult about that? You don't need to be a genius to see the solutions here. Everything is clear. Security is the main condition for prosperity and self-fulfillment. Freedom. Someone needs to hear something abroad about Ukraine's offer that makes them consider dropping everything to go, or at least think about it. But when they tell you that your child will be assembling drones from kindergarten, that Africans will be walking the streets, that the police will kill you and the police will run away, and Putin is still on PD anyway. And we'll keep raising taxes, and nothing will ever happen here. The army is 800,000 in peacetime, so they'll just run away. I really don't know. Now that you've brought this up, just think about it. Everyone who's watching, and you, Tatiana, what if things keep going like this and tomorrow the borders open? Can you even imagine how many millions would leave? I think about 5 million in a year, maybe even in half a year. If 700,000 young people aged 18 to 22 left in just 3 or 4 months, then I think 5 million in half a year, or 9 months, or even a year, they'll still leave. 1,100 will come back. Maybe 200 will stay there. Or people like me. Or those who didn't succeed there. Or feel nostalgic. Well, there are a lot of family circumstances, but these numbers just can't be compared. And this whole wave will leave and keep moving away. And then disappointment will come again. You see what I mean? Those who are now writing about the language, about all this nonsense, they'll be disappointed in a year, and they'll leave, or at least they'll try to. And what do we see? Ukrainians are moving back and forth, living abroad, and other people are populating our country. How can this be allowed? How can this be allowed? But people still don't understand what it means, as you rightly said. Those in Europe understand what it means to let someone into Western civilization, who grew up outside of civilization altogether, who doesn't understand what's going on at all. Yes, it's all so bad. I've already talked everyone's ear off about artificial intelligence because I know we're on the verge of a technological revolution that humanity has never seen before. And we'll be digging potatoes with Africans. You see, that's the whole problem.
People, the situation is like this. As you hear and see, we are gathering information and providing it to you so that you can analyze it, share it, and spread it. If you write us a comment, we will be grateful to you for that. If you send this video to your friend, thank you very much for that as well.
Please subscribe to Denis Elisevich's channel, to Liberty TV, and watch our videos in short segments on Liberty UA. Thank you very much for being with us. See you next time.
Thank you.